Hello! So many of you already chatting in the chat. Hello to each and every one of you. I could name names, but if I name names, if I miss you, you might be upset. Should I name names, Mike? Name names. Okay. Hello, Jamie. Hello, Tish. Hello, Annie. Who else have we got? We've got Kim. Oh, there's lots going on here. Mish D. I'm not sure if there's a name attached to that or if that is the name. Oh, hello, Michelle. And we've got Ricardo. Who is hoping that I show how I made the window auto droplet. Yeah, well, yes. The droplet. It's a stock thing. I'll have to find the address so I can share it with you. Right. Okay, I'm live. Excellent. Let's get on with it. Because although it's colour and you might think, oh, we'll be done in 5 minutes. No, we will not be done in 5 minutes. There's a lot to talk about with colour. So, hello and welcome. Let's make sure the slides are moving. They are indeed. We're broadcasting in HD. Make sure you are watching in HD. To do that, there is a red flash in the lower right-hand corner. While you are down there, there's a like button. So if you enjoy what you see today, give the video a like. It always helps with YouTube. I know most of you know me, but if you don't, I'm Elaine Charles, long-time Affinity user. For longer than I care to remember, I tend to think of Affinity as new, but actually it's been around since 2014, and that's when I started using it. Right, everything we look at today is just as relevant to Mac and Windows, apart from one thing, which I will point out. It's nothing from Affinity that they can't be bothered with, it's just that Windows doesn't support it. But everything else, including a couple of bonuses at the end, will work with Windows. So what have we got today? Well, quite a lot. As I say, it's all to do with colour, but there are multiple panels that are to do with colour. There are multiple tools for managing colour. Then there's palettes and global colours and importing colours, exporting colours. And then a couple of fun sections. What if it's too late? Now, that might sound strange, but trust me. Once we've gone through everything else, your heart will probably be sinking and you'll be thinking, oh no, I didn't do this and I didn't do that. And that means my artwork, I need to start again. No, there's things that we can do if it's too late. And then there's some fun features as well, including me trying to demonstrate with my iPhone. So this should be really, really funny. Then we have the Q&A. Now, when we go into the Q&A, feel free to add questions as we go. Try and remember to put a Q at the beginning and any context that might be needed so we can understand fully the question. It'll just make it a little bit easier for the questions to be put into our system and then answered at the end. Oh, now, we love to read the chat. We really do love to read the chat. So please keep it friendly in there. I'm not affiliated with Canva nor Affinity, never have been. I've been a customer of both and that's it, not trying to sell you anything. So let's have a look at working with colour in Affinity by Canva. I've done this session 3 times before, once for each previous Affinity application. So we had Photo, Designer and Publisher. This one is going to be slightly different because there's a lot changed with colour. If you've seen it before, there's a lot the same, but there's little nuancy things that have changed and there's big things that have changed as well. Now, the first thing people say when I'm talking about colour is, what colour model should I use? Now, Affinity can use different colour models to represent the different ways that you can describe colour. So the models RGB, CMYK, Lab and Grey can be selected as you create your new document. And I think that's where the question comes from. But the thing is, you can change the colour model later without incident. Generally speaking, I would suggest by far the majority of you will be working with either RGB or CMYK. RGB is for digital output and CMYK is for print output. Now, the actual nuances of all those different models and the technicalities of them described comprehensively on the internet. In this section, we're just going to focus on how to set up a document with the correct colour model, the colour space, and how a colour profile represents that colour space. We're also going to be looking at the fact that there are two distinct colour picker tools available in Affinity. You are probably aware of the one on the Swatches panel, which I've highlighted there. There is also a dedicated tool, which is the Eyedropper tool. Now, there are also different kinds of palettes, and I'll be covering that as well. So we have document palettes, we have application palettes, and on the Mac, we have system palettes. Now, there are no system palettes in Windows. That doesn't mean that you're missing a great deal. It's more convenience that you'd be missing. But there are ways to work around it. And as I had said at the beginning, it isn't that Affinity can't be bothered. It's a system feature, and it just isn't available in Windows. But I will be looking at all three of the different system panel types. Then there's the colour swatch formats. Now, there's lots of them. Literally, there's lots of them. An ASE is an Adobe Swatch Exchange file. Let me know in the chat if you're familiar with that. There's also an ACO, an Adobe Photoshop colour swatch. Now, they're not directly supported in Affinity, but there are ways to make it work. Then there's a CLR. That is an Apple colour list, and you're using those already, whether you know it or not, if you're on a Mac. There's a whole range of others, hence AI representing a lot of the others. But there is also an afpalette format, and that is native to Affinity. And it is the way that you can swap colour palettes with colleagues, friends, or just publish them on the internet. That is a very broad overview of what we're going to see. But with no further introduction, let's get in and actually get on with the demonstration, because there's lots to see. And I should mention that my trusty assistant here, there's not only a lot to see, but there's a football match starting at 4:30, isn't there? Which is, yes, which is just under 90 minutes away. Okay, so let's get into Affinity. Now, this is the first time that you will encounter, oh, what should I do with the colours, which is in the new file dialog box. Now, there's two views for this. There is the home view, which shows you your recent files, your templates, favourites, learning opportunities. But the preset section is where you're choosing a size. You can choose whether you want multiple pages, margins, bleed, a drawing scale, all the rest of it. But today, what we're looking at is the bit here, which is, well, we'll do the whole lot, those bits there. So you can choose a colour format. Now, it's defaulted here to RGB, but that's because if I move up a little bit, you can see that this section that I'm choosing from, the page sizes, next to it, it says RGB. If you move down a little bit, there is an A4 page, and that one is CMYK. And choosing that changes what's in here. So I'm going to go back to this RGB one, and we will lose the red box. Right, in there, we have the colour format. So RGB8, RGB16, all the way through to lab colours there. So whichever one you choose here will determine what is shown in the next drop-down. So these are all colour formats to do with RGB. But if I were to change this or switch to the CMYK collection here, you can see I've just literally, all that's done is selected something different from that drop-down, but it shows a whole different range of things in this drop-down. So once you've selected your colour format, the next step is to choose your colour profile. Most of the time, if I'm working with RGB, I leave it to the default. But if I'm working with CMYK, then in here, my print service uses coated foie gras. So I would go in and change it. So these two are related. If you're not sure, if you know you want to print it, but you don't know yet what profile you need, then there is a generic one in here. Or is it uncoated? Nope, there we go. Generic CMYK profile. So if your printer doesn't tell you, ask them. If they should definitely tell you something. But if you just want to work initially and set all of this later, you can do and just choose the generic one. As I said, what I'm going to do today is choose A4 there, which is RGB and our sRGB and a lot of numbers I'm not going to sit and read out, and create the document. That means that our colours that are available are going to be in RGB format. Now, once you start working and adding some shapes to things, or whatever it is that you want to do, so I will there move a couple of these around. You might think, well, how do I go and change it? Do I have to start again and then start copying and pasting stuff? No. Right, with nothing selected, you will find that your context-sensitive toolbar includes the document setup. And that takes you back, although it doesn't look quite the same, it takes you back to the same range of options that were in the initial document setup dialog. This document setup isn't letting you choose a different size. What it's doing is let you configure the document you have open. So although it's saying page preset, photo book A4 and sizes and all other kinds of things, you scroll down a little bit and you will see the same 4 options here. So we can see that we did choose RGB and we did choose this sRGB. But in here, if you now want to print it, just switch it to CMYK, choose whatever your printer says. It's not 27, it's 39. And OK. And you've just switched that. Now, you may have a problem trying to get to that document setup and say, well, Elaine said that it would be there, and it's not. It won't be there if you have anything selected. So just selecting any of these shapes means that the context-sensitive toolbar is now showing you tools, hence it being context-sensitive, that are relevant to you having selected a rectangle. And it's actually telling you rectangle. Now, you can do lots in there with a rectangle, but if what you want is to configure your document, you need to just click away to the side or click on a blank part of your document, and then in the document setup, you will be able to get to it and make the necessary changes in there. Right, I don't need that document anymore, so I'm going to get rid of it. The only reason is I don't want you to have to waste time watching me draw squares. So I've got some squares that I drew earlier. But if we go into the document setup, I can show you how it's set up. It is set up in here for RGB, sRGB. It's exactly the same as the last one, only it's got some squares on it. Right, so I'm going to select a square to get going. Right, the first thing to understand in Affinity, and some people find this very confusing, get annoyed with it, is that you have 2 dedicated panels, and they are dedicated to colours. So we have colour and we have swatches. Oh, one thing I'd like to know if you're in the chat live, if you're in the States, does that panel have a U in it or not? That would be good if you could tell me that. Obviously in the UK it does have a U in it. My poster had a U in it. Affinity was a UK company. Now they're Australian. Do Australians spell colour with a U? I wonder. Well, we'll find out. Somebody will tell me in the chat. Unless, of course, being Australia, they're asleep. In which case, tell me later in the comments. Right, so the first one was the colour panel. Now, if you've never used Affinity before, you're looking at that and thinking that's fine. If you have used it before, in terms of designer, photo or publisher, you might be thinking, what on earth is the bottom half of that dialogue? This is one of the dialogues that changed a lot with this version. So we have in here lots of tools. And the new bit is the bit at the bottom that's showing us tints, tones, shades, all kinds of things to do with colour, which I will come on to. But let's start from the top. At a basic level, this is the default setup. What you have in here is you have this black circle at the back, which allows you to set the stroke. You have this at the front, which at the moment has a grey colour in it, and that is where you set the fill. The little arrow next to them switches them. So if you do that, I now would have a stroke of light grey and it's filled with black. So although it looks like part of the interface, and indeed it is, it's actually active so you can switch things. If you prefer shortcut keys, there is a shortcut key for that, which is the X key. If you're coming from Photoshop or you are Affinity curious, then it's exactly the same. And as I do that, you can see it's swapping the colours around. It's swapping the colours around, but it's not actually applying that. It is swapping which is the active colour. So if I want to change the stroke on it, and this is at the front, then I have to click there to select it. But with the X key, it will switch them over for me. Right, we'll start with that. So this one here, the colour wheel, how the colour wheel works, and some people love the colour wheel, others less so. When I very first switched all those years ago, 12 years ago now, I switched to Affinity Designer from an application called Sketch. And Sketch had a completely different way of selecting colours. I will show you the way that it used to do it later. But this, by default, is what you have. And how it works, the colour wheel, you use the outer edge of it to run round the colours. So we could go for a pinky colour. I mean, in fact, let's go for peachy. Orangey peachy. Right, you choose on the outer ring there. And then on the inner triangle, you can make it much lighter or you can make it much darker. Just by using these colour wells and moving them around. Now, something else happened as I did that, which is as soon as I changed the colour from grey, over here on the right-hand side of this dialog box, I got this colour. Right, that's important because as I move to the next one, at this stage, these two changed back to the default of what is set on that shape, which is that the stroke would be black and the fill would be grey. So if I wanted it to be the same orange, how would I do that? I'd have to start moving this around. But I don't have to do that because it's added it up here. And all I would need to do to apply that somewhere else in my document is click on it from there. Now, I personally wouldn't rely on that. It's the quick and dirty method. Once we come on to looking at palettes, that's a much better way to work. But this is happening as we're going, so I'm explaining it. Also notice that something else happens when I change the colour from grey to this peachy colour, which is the bottom half of the dialog box is showing you tints, tones, split complementaries, and all of these other ways of thinking about colour based on what fill is applied to the shape that you have selected. That doesn't mean that you can select one of these and apply it to a different shape. You can select another shape and then you go back and you think, oh, you know, that bluey colour that I was going to apply, not there. The way to use this bottom bit is to apply a colour. So I wanted this one. So if I apply the orange where it's showing me that in the bottom, then I can change it. Once I've changed it, notice that these update again. So again, if I want the one that was next to it, I would go into here, and now I have a problem because I've got the black and the white. Is that peach? No, that's white. So no, that's not working too well. So I'd have to go back to this one. So you can see that this way of working can be quite lossy in terms of 1 minute something's there and the next minute it's not. But you can switch between these in this kind of way. Obviously, what you could do is duplicate this shape. Let's bring that to the front so we can see it. In fact, yeah, there we go. It's over the top. And from there, I could then apply one of these. So that is what you've got at the bottom here. Now, these are all based on the mathematics of colour. So what you're seeing in here isn't user configurable by you. It is based on the rules of colour. Now, one thing we could do, there is a lock icon down here. So as I move on, now we're getting somewhere. Now we can apply these other colours without losing what was the source colour, which was that one or the purple one or the other, right? So we can lock that on if we want and then start using these, which is a decent way to work. Still nowhere near as good as palettes, but that is what you can do with it. Okay, right, what haven't we looked at in this dialogue? Well, there are other things that you can do with it. So if you don't want a fill at all, then next to the fill icon, you have this set to none, and that will take the fill away. It also works on the stroke. Now, we're not seeing a stroke on here. Although the stroke is set to black, we're not actually seeing it. But that's because in the stroke here, there isn't one applied. As soon as we apply it and make it big enough so we can see it, that's the colour we've got. We go back to the colour here. We could flip those over, but let's put them back. If I don't want a stroke on it, I can use that set to none to take the stroke away. And then bringing this back, I can just choose a colour and apply it. So all of this interface is active. All of these over here are active. If I want to apply the purple or the green, I can do it from these. So these are your recently used colours. Right, there's even more that this can do. So I'm going to select one of the grey ones. And this that is an eyedropper is your colour picker. And next to that, it's showing you what colour it has in there right now. If I were to click that, it would apply that, which is black, to the fill. But you can also drag this over your interface and choose any other colour, including parts of the interface. So if I drag this up to single radius, we get a nice blue colour, and I can select that from there. So this global colour picker, as I call it, from here, the colour picker, enables you to select colours outside of your working area, your canvas area. It can select it even from the interface. If what I wanted was my desktop blue, so let's choose a different colour there initially, but my desktop blue, I can select it from there as well. I could even select it from other monitors. So I have 3 monitors. This is my central monitor that you're seeing, but on my left and my right, I have another monitor. On the left-hand side of the screen, I have Obsidian open. And in Obsidian, I have a code block, and that is the background colour of my code block. So that colour picker, very powerful. You can select colours from anywhere that you can see on your screen. So once more, for good measure, let's grab that, go up to the Vector Studio, and choose the colour for that. And that is how that works. You also have in here the ability to alter the transparency of that colour. So we had one of these, didn't we? It wasn't that one. I think it was that one. It was. All right, so let's make it that we can see half of that, like that. Right, and we'll put a colour in here. We're going to end up with a muddy mess, but it'll work. Right, so I've got here 2 shapes, one half on the other. Right, with this selected, I can alter the opacity of it. So you start to see the other colour coming through. So that is changing the opacity. With that one set here and grabbing this back one and doing the same, you can see it affects both of those because the top one has transparency. And you can type in here an amount of transparency. So I must admit, I can't leave it at 31%. No, it has to be 30 or 32. Right, that's just me. But I do tend, if I'm working with transparencies, to use sort of 5% as an increment. 1% is not going to make that much difference, and my OCD will kick in. So let's just leave it alone. So that is what you can do here. There's one more thing that you can do, which is if you know the hex code of your colour, you can paste in the value of it. So a hex code represents a certain colour. Let me show you how that works. So I'm going to go to a browser. I will bring the browser onto the screen so you can see it. Make that full screen. Midnight Blue hex code is what I'm going to type. And it will show me that the hex code for Midnight Blue, which is my Mac Bytes After Hours colour, is 191970. So let's get that out of the way and put that in. So 191970. So to do that, I will select one of these, go to the box, 191970, and press enter. And that is now Midnight Blue. So that is also what you can do here. We are not even finished yet with this dialog box, believe it or not. So it is deceptively simple in terms of looking at it, but what it can do is amazing, and half of the features tend to be hidden. Right, let's unlock that so it starts to change again. Right, now what I'm going to do with this dialog box is use the disclosure triangle here. And remember I said that I moved from an app called Sketch it didn't use the wheel to make a selection. It used sliders. We can switch the entire interface for picking colour to sliders if we want. So what we now have is this slider here. Now, if we go in here and go back to RGB, because that's what we're using, we now have 3 sliders, one for each element of the RGB colours. So we can change the amount of red in a colour, we can change the amount of green in a colour, or the amount of blue in the colour. So if you wanted black, you would slide them all the way across to the left. If you want white, you would slide them all the way across to the right. Now, although we don't have in this dialog box now the way to paste a hex value in, what we can do is change from RGB to RGB hex. And now each of these is displaying in a hex value and the full hex value at the bottom. So if we look at this, RGB would be 255.255.139. That is just a way of describing a colour in RGB language. But if you're working with hex values, which people do a lot when they're doing web design, and I tend to use hex values as well, then you can actually type those in. So we could either put in that dialog box 1970 for midnight blue. If we undo that, you could put it in there. So you could put 19, tab 19, and 70 at the bottom. And that visualizes that hex code for you as well. It shows you how much red is in it, how much green is in it, and how much blue is in it. I used to switch to that view constantly, but I tend to use the color palette, the color panel, a lot less than palettes. So I think I would use it more in terms of what I'm showing you right now. If the artwork that I was designing was maybe like hand-drawn stuff, cartoons, things like that, most of my content tends to be in layout view, and I tend to be working to a brand guideline, which means that I've got saved palettes. But I still initially would need to know everything that this dialog box did, so I can create those palettes. Right, so that we've seen 2 up here that we've got available. You can also change this to HSL. You can change it to CMYK, which will give you 4 sliders. You can change it to lab, and you've seen the grayscale. That was what it defaulted to. So for me, I would use RGB hex in that view. But remember, we got to this view by using the drop-down. We have other views. We can use what they call a box view, which shows you a box and you can slide it around here. You change it from blue by the top slider. So if you think about it, this is just a different way to visualize the wheel. On the wheel, the top part was around the edge on the wheel, and this part in the middle was in the triangle. It's just a different way of showing it. You also in here have hue, saturation, and lightness to manipulate if you choose to use this view. Then we have the last one, which is tint. And that's very simplistic. It just enables you to choose a different tint for the shape that you have selected. But remember, we also have tints at the bottom, and tones and complementaries and all other kinds of stuff. So I would say that this bottom half of the dialog has rendered the top half of that dialog box not as useful as it used to be. But thing to remember, color panel, you're not limited to the wheel if you really, really dislike the wheel. I've warmed to the wheel over the years, but as I say, I use palettes much more. So that's the default view. Are a couple of benefits to it. You've got your hex value that you can edit, and you've got your recently used colours, should you not remember which colour it actually was. Now, in addition to the colour panel, you also have the Swatches panel. And while there is an overlap in terms of what this does, there's also differences. So making it transparent works exactly the same way. The colour picker works exactly the same way. So you can pick a colour and it will apply it in here. You can change the opacity. So there's an opacity slider as well. And your recents, instead of being over across on the right-hand side, are shown underneath the main elements here. These are recent colours. Now, if you open a file, you will see recent colours. You have very little control over what you see there. If you've used a colour, which is why I undo a lot, if you've used a colour and you're only trying it, it will stay in there and there's no way to clear it without a lot of dirty hackery. So if you think, I'm not going to use that candy pink, not ever am I going to want that, you can undo. And as you undo, you can see it bringing back the colour that was there before. And if you keep going, when I get back to a grey one, it will actually start to reduce these if I just keep moving backwards. But that's what we're seeing here. My best advice would be just ignore it, get used to the fact it's there and that it's not easily clearable, and ignore it, unless you actually do need a recently used colour. Now, the next thing that you have in here is access to your palettes. So at the moment it says colours, and we have a whole range of colours here. We also have, so I'm just going to show you what you've got. You pick from what's in here. So you have access to Pantone colours. You also have access on a Mac to system palettes, and you have application palettes. There are more to palettes, but we're coming on to that. So that's a list of palettes that you have available. You also have an option here to add the current fill to the palette. So when I said I use palettes more than I use the colour options I have in here, that's what I mean. I make custom palettes and I add the colours I'm using to those palettes. We will see that shortly. I also have the ability to have a transparent fill, so no fill at all, black, 50% grey and white. Now, whereas I can change these things and it will change what is in underneath the name of it, these are persistent in the interface. They are actually quite useful because a lot of the time you do want something at 50% grey or black and white, or you don't want a fill at all. So these are persistent, they are quite useful. Now, let me show you what we've actually got here as well. This is not the view that I normally work with. So you've seen that you can change the view with a colour panel. You can also do that in here. Now, there's things where you can add stuff coming onto that, but in terms of appearance, if they're too small for you, you can set the swatches to medium or even large. That's better, isn't it, for the old eyes? You can see those. But more than that, these colours have names. Now, it doesn't matter what palette type you have selected at this point. Let's say like a Mac Bites palette. These are my Mac Bites colours. I've got no idea what I called them, but if I hover over them, you can see, that's the header for the website. That's black, that's white, and that is the grey that I'm using, but it's not 50% grey. Right, if we go back to, and these are custom palettes I have created. This is my Affinity branding palette. I think it's safe to say we can all pick the branding for version 3, and I know some people don't call it version 3, but whatever. Right, that will be this one. So it says Affinity branding. As I hover over these, Affinity Vector, Pixel, and Layout. And those three are the colours from this interface. And obviously, because I'm creating training materials, learning materials for Affinity, it's important that I have access to these colours. Now, the first 5, Affinity Brown, right up to the Affinity Branding Green, I added to an existing palette. The colours that were already there were Affinity Publisher, Primary, Secondary and Tertiary. And then I had Designer and I had Photo and I had Annotation Background and Annotation Text for when I'm creating tutorials. Now obviously, I'm not going to maybe be able to tell between these which is which. So the view I actually prefer is quite small, so I do set them to small. But in my appearance, I show them as a list. And now I've got the names next to them. Now, you do not have to do that for the next thing I'm going to show you to work, but it's handy. Right, you can search for a colour. So if I'm in here and I've got, maybe you could have 200 colours in here if you really wanted to. You can search by name. So if I'm looking for the publisher colours, I start to type publisher. I get as far as PUB. That's unique, and those are the 3 colours. So that is a way to search If I wanted to see what the vector one was, that's the Affinity Vector Studio Colour. And then in here, I can just click the X at the end to clear that and be back and see all of my colours. What you've got in this panel works exactly the same as you had in the other one. So if you want to see those publisher colours, there's the darker one, there's the mid one, and there's the light one. And you could do the same for designer. So just select, click to apply, and you have them applied. Right, that's good as far as it goes. Right, what we need at that point is then to understand here, before I move on with these panels, so the colour panel and the swatches panel, I will show you the tools. Because I've shown you one tool, I need to show you the other tool at this stage. So the one tool we've used to select colours is this one, where we've gone about the interface and we can choose all kinds of things here, even outside of it. That is one tool. The other tool is a dedicated tool in the panel, and it is the Colour Picker tool, and the shortcut for that is the letter I. You click that and you might think, well, there's very little difference. It's just going to choose a colour when I click. Indeed, it will. That's exactly what it will do. And you can carry on using that. And then I would need to come out of that tool, because it's a tool like all of these other tools. I switch it on and then I switch it off by going back to the Move tool. So we made a selection of a colour and it picked it up and we could apply that colour. So if I'm there and I have that selected, I use I to activate the tool and then click a colour. It will automatically apply it to what I had selected. That is how the tool works. So you might think, well, there's a lot of overlap there. That's exactly what the other tool does. And I will admit, I don't often use the Eyedropper tool, but there are reasons to use it. Right. You have options because it's a dedicated tool that you've selected. Look at the top here. And what we have there is the context sensitive toolbar. And I dropped that far too quickly. Let's go back into it and draw around it. So these are the options you have. And it's these options that make this tool different from the tool that you will find in the panels. So first of all, you have an ability to select a colour and not apply it to the selection, which was what happened. So let's go down there, select it, go back into the tool. With it applied, so apply to selection, when I choose a colour, it applies it to the selection. But, let's go back into it. Let's turn that off. And now I could go and select anything and it won't apply it. So I'm just picking it up. It is picking it up, but it's not applying it. Right, so that's what that option does. You can then choose magnification or not, and that is the interface you're looking at now, where there is a magnifying thing. Right, we take that away, you can be very precise. So if you were choosing from an image, you could zoom in and zoom in and zoom in until you are literally, it would even indicate the pixels for you, choosing 1 pixel. So if you really absolutely must have the colour of one individual pixel, you can do that. Right, let's leave the magnification on so we can see what we're doing. Then you've got the source. Is it global? Or is it, now I better get rid of that now so we can actually read it. Is it global? Where's my mouse gone? Or is it the current layer? Now that's important the more complicated you have your artwork. Initially it's set to global. So whether I'm clicking this one, this one, this one, doesn't matter. It will pick up that colour. So to see that in action, we will choose one of these. We will go and get this colour and we will click and you will see that it will apply it. And it's global. It doesn't matter what layer it's on. Now, the other option that you have in here is to change that to current layer. Now, the current layer is indicated in the layers panel. So it's this green one down here. Right, if I try and pick blue, not doing it, it's picking white because there is no colour underneath it. If I go there, there is a green. So I find that just more confusing. I can see that it would have uses depending on, I mean, my image is very simple for colours, isn't it? It's squares. It's easy. But if it was an artwork, it would be a little trickier and you might choose current layer. I tend to leave that to global and leave it alone. Now, the next option is what really sets this tool apart from the tool in the panels, which is the radius, or how big is the sample area you are choosing. Now, it's 1 by 1. It's one single pixel at the moment. So I've got another image here. Let's open that one, which is Bruno the dog. Right, let's say I wanted to choose this beautiful golden brown here. So I go and get my eyedropper tool and I hover, and I'm looking for this kind of golden brown here, and I select it, and it's murky. That's not really the golden brown I was looking for. Right, I get a better sample if I choose an average. So I can average 3 by 3 pixel grid, 5 by 5, right up to 257. So let's go for a 17 by 17 and hover over that. And now what it's going to give you is a much lighter brown because it's averaging it out. And you can even choose, let's choose that one. And it's just giving you a better way to select. That one's actually quite dark, isn't it? It's a better way to select the colours. That, I would say, is the primary reason to use this tool rather than any other tool. That is what I would say with it. Now, there is a limitation with this tool. It's an obvious limitation if you think about it. But remember what this one did. I could drag this on and move around and go up here and choose the blue. I could do that. I cannot do that with this tool. With this one selected, as soon as I move outside of the canvas area, it switches back to being a mouse pointer, the arrow. Obviously, that's because you can't have a range of tools that you can't get to because it's in colour picker mode, and it's a colour picker. So they've limited the use of that to the actual canvas area. So that is the limitation. This one is much more powerful depending on where you're picking colours from. The eyedropper is much more powerful when you want a better radius to make a selection from, an average colour selection. Right, so those were the two tools. Let's now get back to working with palettes. So we are in our swatches here. So we've looked at palettes in here, and we have a range of palettes. Now these top ones are application palettes. They are only available inside the Affinity app. If you are using version 1 or version 2, the palettes, particularly in version 2, these palettes can be set so they work in the 3 applications, but they are application specific. What that means is, if I make an application palette and I put in the brand colours, those brand colours will only be available inside Affinity. Now that might be what you want, but sometimes it's not. So if you think about this Affinity branding, I would want the Affinity branding colours to be available anywhere that I'm creating assets that relate to the Affinity brand. One of those places is my presentation. You'll notice that the slides have that lovely Shrek green on them, this light coloured thing here. I need to know what the hex value is for that, and I'm not memorising it. Now, I actually have PowerPoint running right now. You can't see it, but it is actually running right now. So, I don't really want to bring PowerPoint back and take it out of presentation view and all of that. So, I will show you what I mean when I say application specific versus system palette by opening up Keynote, which is a presentation app for Mac. We will just in there make a new file. Doesn't matter, anything will do. Right, and we'll make a new blank slide like that. Right, let's say I'm working in here and I want to make a slide that has got that green as a stripe over here. And it's a demo. I'm not being that precise. Right, so that is black, obviously, but I want it to be the green. Now, I have colours that I can choose, but they're not the right green. Down here, I can choose colours, but I can also click this button. This will take me through to the Mac Colour Picker. This works very similar in PowerPoint on Windows. But what we're looking at in here, this is a range of colours that we can choose from. But again, I still don't know which green's which. But I've got a colour wheel. That's not much use. I've got sliders. That's not much use either. But if I go into this one in the middle here, it says crayons. Those crayons are what we see in here. But the crayons come from a system palette. If I click the drop down in here, there's my Magbites palette. There's my Affinity branding palette, and that's the one I want. And notice that the colours in here are identical to the colours in Affinity. So if I wanted that green, it's now green. If I was talking about layout view or pixel view or vector view, I could change it in here. Those hex colours are absolutely correct because it's the exact palette that I'm using in Affinity. I can only do that on Mac, and I can only do it because it's a system palette. So that is when you may want to create a system palette. Notice that you've got all the options that you have in Affinity in here, they're just in a different place. You can change the opacity, you can search, you can add colours. If I show you some of the others, like Microsoft, there's a whole range of colours for Microsoft that they use in their branding. And there is our Magbites ones, which are there, and they are the same ones. So that's just something to be aware of. Inside Affinity, when you are making the decision, so we don't need that, when you're making the decision what type of palette you create, think about where you would want to use the palette. If it's only in Affinity, feel free to make an application palette. If it's system-wide and you're on a Mac, you could create a system palette. There is a third type of palette, which is a document palette. My preference. Must admit, my preference for creating palettes. So we need to go and create a palette, don't we? Should we create a palette called Bruno and be done and choose some colours from Bruno? Right. How you do that, from the disclosure triangle that we had at the top, you have the ability to add an application palette, a document palette, or a system palette. That option is only there on macOS. Hopefully, Microsoft will add that feature because it is incredibly useful. So this is the point that you make the decision, what type of palette are you adding? It doesn't, for demonstration purposes, matter which one I choose, but because there are no system palettes on Windows, I'll choose an application palette. Right, it needs a name. I will call this Bruno. And that now appears here in the list. Each one of the palette types has an icon. The Pantones don't at the bottom, but it does say Pantone. These ones have an icon that represents the monitor. And these ones have the cog. They used to have the serif icon, but that's long gone. But these are application palettes. So Bruno is selected. Right, at this point, I want to make a selection and add some colours. Right, I have the option here to add the current fill to the palette. That would add the blue. So let's add that. And it adds it. It gives it a name, which is the RGB code for it. Not the best way to name it, but, you know, we're almost there, aren't we? So let's choose one of those as well. That is now the currently selected colour. So if I add that, it will add that to the palette. And I can just keep going around here. That's virtually black, isn't it? But I think it is some kind of grey. There is actually a purple in his eye, which probably came from the camera, to be honest. So let's add the purpley thing and just keep adding. Now, what you can do when you've got these in here is name them. If you are going to name these, there is nothing wrong in there with saying that that is a blue. So we could call that, we're not doing it in there either. That's actually editing the colour. Let's rename it. Right, let's say that is blue. And let's say that this, rename that, and that is lavender. Right, I'm going to change the rules on this in a second, but right now there's no harm in calling them what they are, which is blue, lavender, you know, very dark grey and brown. There's no harm in doing that. Right, what I could do in here, if this one is a little bit too dark, I can actually choose to edit the fill of a saved colour. So if I actually wanted that to be more green, or take it up there like that, I can do that. And that has now edited that colour from this point forwards. is what it's done. Now, if I go back to my coloured squares, I think we're basically at the point we need some more coloured squares, aren't we? Oh, there we go. I have got coloured squares. Right, so another grid. Right. The colours that I was using in the Bruno file, I had created a application palette, so they are available in here. So I can select these like that. Right, that's important. That's one of the distinctions between the palette types. So we've seen creating a new palette. We have seen adding colours to a new palette. The behaviour between the system palettes and the application palettes is identical. The third type of palette is where everything changes. And the third type of palette is a document palette. Now, if we look in our list, we don't have any of those at the moment. So let's create one. To do that, there's a couple of ways. If you don't already have a document palette, you can choose to add a document palette. There is another way, which I'll come on to. So let's add a document palette. I tend to call the first one of these document. Now, the difference is, whereas you've seen me create a palette for Bruno in Bruno's image, and then use those colours in another document, with a document palette, it only exists inside the document that you create it in. So we have this document here. If I go back to Bruno the dog and click the drop down, there are no document palettes. And it isn't just a case of, well, there's no colours in it. No, that's not it either. Let's add that blue. Let's add this rust colour. Now there's colours in it. If I go back to Bruno, it's still not there, because it only exists in this document. That is fantastic if you are sharing this document with somebody, or future you thinks, I wonder what those colours were. They are actually locked into the file. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't edit them. And so we could go into here and edit both the fill, so change the colour, and we can change the name of it, like that. Now, this is sort of a dirty pink now, isn't it? Let's call it dirty pink. Right, if I do that and then I apply it, great. But here's the problem. We're going to get more clever with a document palette. So do we really want to call it dirty pink? Or do we really want to call it what it is? And what I mean in terms of what it is where are you using it? So is it the Affinity brand colour or something like that? Now, at this stage, because you can edit that, client comes back and says, oh, we've changed the brand. We've changed the brand. We've gone to this lovely green. Well, it's not dirty pink now, is it? So possibly not the best thing to call them what they look like, but call them what they are. So in this one, that would be main brand. Now, this becomes even more important when we look at global colours. So what we've got in here at the moment are standard colours, just colours that we create, and we click and we add. So if we select that one, we can apply the colour, select that one, we can apply it. Right. But it gets a lot better than that. So the other way to create a document palette was to create a global colour by adding a global colour. Now notice it gives you the global colour dialog box. It allows you to create a colour. That's hot pink, but we're not going to call it that. Let's put headlines and do that. Now, it added it to the document palette that we already have. It didn't create another palette. Its behaviour from that menu depends whether you have a document palette in your document already or not. So if we go up here, I can show you that document palette, you can actually delete it. It will warn you, are you sure? I'm saying yes. Right, it has totally gone. Now, the second way this same menu option, it's great, isn't it? When the same menu option does two different things. But if you don't have a document palette and you choose to add a global colour, brings up exactly the same dialog box. We create exactly the same dodgy green. We will call that brand and add. And it does two things instead of one. One, it does create the global colour. And 2, it creates the document palette, and it calls it document. Now, you don't have to call it document, and notice that it has a different icon to indicate it's a document. So that's a document palette, that's a system palette. No, hang on, that's an application palette, and that's a system palette, and these are your Pantone colours. Your document palettes will always be at the top. Right, what's the important thing about global colours? What's so important about them? Well, first of all, they are indicated slightly differently. So just to show you, I'm going to go in and make it large and point out that just about there in the lower left-hand corner, there's a white triangle with a black stroke on it. That is what indicates that it is a global colour. So you can have global colours in a document palette, and you can have non-global colours in a document palette. Right, we've got a couple of other colours in here. So let's click this one. You know that if I use this option, I am adding the current fill to the palette. But next to it, I have a new button, which will add it as a global colour. Now, if we go back to one of these, you can see that button's missing. That button is only there if you are in document palettes. So let's choose that one and add as global. Notice the middle one is not global. The green is global, this is global. Now, a very, very, very simple way of demonstrating this is to apply to multiple shapes a colour like that. And then edit the fill. Now, I can rename it. So at the moment, let's say main brand. And that makes no difference whatsoever. But my second way of editing this is to actually edit the fill. And if I'm editing the fill, I will slide this and make it darker, and then we'll make it blue. It changes all instances on the canvas where you have used a global colour. That is the benefit and the beauty of a global colour. Now, it's all very well showing you blue squares, isn't it? That's great. But what does that mean in real life? Let's have a look what it means in real life. So what I have is a real file. I've got two actually, but I will use that one. I have a real file. This is the brand file for our parishes. So I look after the admin and design side of our local church. That is the letterhead on the left-hand side. So we have on this side the primary letterhead, its continuation sheet, which is just a stripe, and a with complement slip at the bottom. Also in that colour, I have a trifold brochure, which is there. So we have the inside flap, the back, the front. Done a video on this, you know we did a couple of weeks back. That is what I have up there. And they are using, let's have a look what we've got in here, primary, which is in a document palette with a triangle, so it's a global colour. Right, well, let's get rid of the circles and let's have a look what we've got. So there is the trifold. There is the primary letterhead. That is the continuation. And that is the with complement slip. I also have in here a secondary one because colour printing costs a lot. So you might as well have a black and white version as well for letters that are not as significant as the other ones. These are printed out on site. So I actually took this and made a Word version of it for the parish secretaries. You just open up Word, new from template, it's a letterhead and start typing. But this is the source file. Right, so let's look at the whole thing. Imagine that they decide they're going to change the brand colour from this maroon colour to something more offensive, probably. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to edit this fill. So let's slide this across, slide that across. We'll make it a darker green, I think, like that. And you can see what's happening. Everything is changing. The letterhead primary, the continuation, the with complement slip, and everything in there. Just to make sure that you can see that. There's the primary, there's the continuation, there is the with complements, and there is our trifold. Now, with this, although the second one, so this one here, it does say secondary. Notice it does not say black and white. It says secondary. And this secondary colour is also a global colour. So I could edit that and make that bluer. Now, I'd probably do this if they were thinking of changing their colour and they wanted to see what it looked like. Right, you'll notice at this stage that page changed. Did everything else change? And yes, it did. So we have our secondary continuation with complement slip and a completely separate trifold. And the benefit to me is I'm not driven absolutely mad by having to manually make all of those changes. So that file is a real file. In fact, I had to recreate it because the original was from 2018, which was the week Affinity Publisher was released. And the reason I had to recreate it was, I don't know what I was thinking in terms of how I made it, but I've made it properly now. Like that. So that is what that looks like. Done the demo with the squares, but that's what it looks like for real in a real file. So let's close that. Don't want to save it. Don't want the priest having a fit, seeing different colours that aren't the colours that he wanted. Okay, now we've created some palettes at this stage. But what if we have some palettes from a client? Now, if our church had somebody doing their design work before me, which they didn't, then I may have been handed off some palettes and need to see them and work with them. Now, I mentioned that there are different formats for palettes, and indeed there are. There are lots of different formats for palettes. Right, I have a couple of those so I can show them to you. So what I'm going to do is show you what I've got here. Let me just get these in the right place. So I have in here how to import palettes, and they are ASE files. So if I just show you that, it shows you it's an ASE, and it knows over here that it's an Adobe Swatch Exchange file. That doesn't let you actually see that though. So when I do a preview, I'm not actually seeing it. It's got this icon because I have an application installed called Colour Slurp. Don't give that a second thought. It went subscription and they haven't updated it in 2 years, and I'm using something else. But that's why I've got these icons. You may not have those icons. But what we need to do is import those into here so I can use them. I've got no idea what colours are in them. It's going to be quite exciting, this, isn't it? If that floats your boat. So from the drop down here, instead of adding a palette, I have the option to import a palette. But before I can import a palette, I have to tell it how I'm importing it. What kind of palette do you want when you've imported it? So despite the fact that this came from Photoshop or another application that supports ASEs, when you get or are about to import it into Affinity, you get to decide if it's an application palette, a document palette, or a system palette if you're on a Mac. So let's bring this in as a document palette. And it then wants to know where they are. So I will look in here. So we'll import this Adobe one first. It's obviously a colour theme from Adobe Colour. So I make a selection and I open it, and it adds everything into there. Now notice the naming of it. It didn't stop and say, what do you want to call this? It just imported it with a not very helpful name. It also, in here, the colours weren't named. So it's used the name of the palette and just added a number on the end. But it has imported all of the colours. And they are now usable just like anything else. Just select what you want and apply the colour. Simple. Let's go back and do that again, and then we can start tidying things up. So we will import. We'll have another document palette, and this time we'll choose this mysteriously named palette file. Right, and it has brought in another 5 colours. So this time we've got purple, and we've got grey, etc. Now notice that although I said make it an application palette, it hasn't done magic and turned these into global colours or anything like that. And it did just call it palette. So we need to use this menu to tidy things up a bit. So let's say here, this is Mystic Night. It's got purple in it, it'll do. So I give it a name. That does not change the name of the actual colours. You would need to rename each fill. So we'll have that as Dark Night. That is how you do that. But you can go a step further than that. So with this colour here, if I right click it, I can make it a global colour, and that will update it. Now, this one had that colour applied to it. I'm going to apply that colour to a couple more shapes like that. And then we need to prove it's a global colour and that we can edit the fill itself, what it looks like. And notice what happens. 3 out of the 4 change, but not the original. But you're probably thinking, Elaine, you created that colour from that shape there. So why didn't it change? Well, it didn't change. Hang on, I've applied a different colour. Right, it didn't change because although it had the colour applied to it, the moment the colour was applied, it was not a global colour. So if we undo all of that and get back to Dark Night being that colour, when I select this, you can see that that lights up. That's the colour that's selected. When I select this one, it lights up there. You can see that's the one that's selected. Right, so we would expect this because I applied it to that one, that one, that one. Hang on a minute. It's applied to that one. No, it's not. It looks like it is, but it's not. You know that if I edit it, it doesn't change. So although it has the same hex code, it is not the global version of it. It's a simple matter to apply the global version of it. It's now applied. I know there's no indication in the interface at all that that has just happened, but it has. So let's edit that, and now all of them change. So if you're making, if you're taking a colour that is already there and you are making it global, do be aware of the fact that you have to apply it to the shape that you created it from for it to be global and for it to update. So that was importing them and then affinityizing them, because global colours are supported in other applications, but obviously the way they work in Affinity is specific to Affinity. So that was how we imported them. Now, we did have one that we'd created, which was the top one, which was Document. So these were the 3 that we created. A not inspiring palette, but never mind, it'll do. What you can do with this is export it. Now, at the moment, it's a document palette, so it only exists in this file. If you want to share this with somebody or make it available as a download, you would need to export it. So from here, we have the option to export a palette. And that one's importing palettes. We'll go up a level and we'll stick it in the root of here. Right? It calls it document at this stage. We will leave it set to document. In fact, let's make it document X. Ooh, mysterious. Right, and save that. That has now exported that file. We know that this document palette, be it called document or document X, wasn't available in Bruno. So what we'll do is we'll import the palette from here into Bruno. So we do that exactly the same way we did it before, which was import a palette. We do need to tell it at this point what type of palette. That should tell you that it doesn't matter a jot what type of palette it was when you exported it. This is the moment you decide what type of palette it is going to become. And we want this as a document palette. Right, we will go and find it. There is the Document X palette. I will open it. Notice it didn't prompt me for a name, and it called it document. So the name that you save it as is irrelevant. It will bring it in. And now when you're editing this, so let's say we give this a name. So let's rename that. Oh, how about Mystic Pink? All right. I'm into Mystic today. Mystic Pink. Although we shouldn't be calling it pink, should we? So how about Mystic, oh, I know, Mystic Crystal. There we go. And that way I can recolour it with abandon. I don't have to worry about the name matching. But notice, I called the middle one Mystic Crystal. Go back to this one. It is not Mystic Crystal. They are 2 completely separate palettes living in two completely separate documents at this stage. Now, this document was saved. It had a name. If I command an S, it saves it. This one is a JPEG. And there's nothing Affinity in here. There's no extra layers or anything like that. So while this document, at the moment, this document palette, lives inside this file, does it? Well, this file hasn't been saved. So if I go to save that file, it has saved the file. Did it save that with it? Well, I don't think it's going to make such a good job of that unless we save it as an Affinity file. So I would do a save as, and you don't get an option for file format at this point because save as is going to save it as an Affinity file. And that way, we've lost the JPEG at the end and we are guaranteed that it will save our document palette with it. So just something to think about in terms of practicalities. Right, we imported an ASE file. We imported an Affinity palette file, an AF palette file. What do you do with other formats? Are they all the same? No, they're not. So what I'm going to do back in here, just to show you file formats, we've worked with ASEs, we've worked with palette files. If in here I want to choose one of these, so let's say my Affinity branding one, that would be a good one to export and maybe share, wouldn't it? Right, so from in here, I can do the export palette. Call it Affinity branding and we are exported. Right, what format would that be? Well, when we exported the other one, we ended up with an AF palette file. So I'm just going to get these so we can see them. We created document X, if you remember, which was here. But when I exported this Affinity branding file, I got a CLR, which is an Apple color list file. Why did that happen? That happened because these are system-wide, which means they are Apple format and not AF palette. They can't be an AF palette file because other applications you saw Keynote use it. They are Apple color list files when you come to export them. Now, one thing I do when I come to export things is, let's say I'm working on Bruno and I have my document palette. And I think that might be a document palette that's useful for the future, but I don't really want to make it a system palette. And I don't really want to make it an application palette either. Because if it's a system palette or it's an application palette and my machine crashes and burns, I've lost my palette. So as soon as I've created something like this, good practice, not essential, but good practice would be to export it so I've got a copy of it. What I do with that is export it, but where do I put it? And where I put it is in my Dropbox, Application Support, Affinity folder. And in my Affinity folder, I have a colour palettes section, and there are my colour palettes. And you can see I've already exported this, not this one, but I exported my Affinity branding, Coffee from a couple of years ago I was using. My course tracking, MacBytes, and the Microsoft ones, they are already in there. Now this one is Bruno. So I will call it Bruno and save it. I do that whenever I create a palette, just to have a backup of it off the system. If you have a lot of system palettes, these type, and you are on a Mac, because you wouldn't have them at all on Windows, but if you have a lot of those, you are able to see those if we go into your library. I don't suggest you play around in here for long, right? But that is where they're stored. It's in your library colors folder. And you can see they are all CLRs. Want a backup of those? All of them? Just compress them. They are tiny, tiny files. Now I've got a backup of it. And I would put that in my Affinity thing in there. I would say system palettes. And I've got the whole lot backed up. And they go in my colour palettes folder. And they're all backed up. Simple as that. But don't make any other changes in there or things will break. Right. Okay, let's get back over there. Right, so I've explained about the CLRs. The problem you're going to have is if you are working with somebody who is in Photoshop and you want to share a palette that you've created as an ASE. Because notice, when I come to export these, it doesn't let me choose a file format. It just says, okay, export it. Export it as what? Well, that depends on what type of colour palette it is. If it's a system one, it'll make a CLR. That's going to be no use whatsoever to anybody on Windows. Or if it's an Affinity style palette, it will save an afpalette file, which is no use to anybody with Photoshop. So we have a little bit of a problem with that. There are a few things that you can actually do, and it's related to being able to convert these palettes. So at this stage, I'm going to show you how to create certain things, and then I'm going to move on to what you can do with a file, maybe something like this that you have created in here, and you want to share it. So what I would do if I was doing this is I would tidy this up considerably. In fact, let's say that these are the colours I want to share. Those shapes there. The best way to do that is to make a new file. This doesn't actually matter at all, as long as I put these in. Right. To make sure you don't get anything that you don't want, if you bump these up next to each other, you're basically creating what looks like a swatch. If I then, bearing in mind I'm in vector mode, if in here I want to, well, I would like to do that. Right, let's add an artboard. So that is now an artboard that I am going to squish down so it's only the size of these, which is 150. Go on, you can do it. Right. So it's the right size. I don't have anything else on there other than the colours that I want. So that's my artboard that contains it. So I'll say that's colours. Right. Believe it or not, the best way to do this is to export it as a PNG or a JPEG, one or the other. Now it's solid colours, so I'm going to make that a JPEG. No, I'm not, a PNG. Right, so I will export that and I will put it in my folder here as exported colours. Right, let's do that. Okay. Right, now obviously at this stage, all I'm going to have is a PNG. I will show you the PNG. That is what the PNG looks like. So it literally is just a copy of that Affinity file, but it's in PNG format. Simple as that. Because what I'm going to do with it is convert it. And to do that, what do I want to do there? Right, what I want to do here is, let's get the browser up and let's go to Adobe Color. And there it is, color.adobe.com. I know it's Adobe and you're panicking. It's free. You do need an account if you want to do some of the things I'm going to show you, but it's an option. Right, what you can do here is to say, get colours from somewhere. So extract a theme or whatever. Right, extract colour from an image and save them as a colour palette. And of course, it's Adobe. So the colour palette that it creates will be an ASE. So I am going to drag and drop our exported colours and boom, we are done. So at that point, I get to choose where I save this to and if I publish it and lots of other things. I don't want to publish it anywhere, so I'm going to slide that off. And where am I saving it to? Now, these places here are libraries in your Adobe account, and this works with a free account. So in there, it says colour theme, exported colours, blah, blah, blah. That's where the name must have come from. But we'll call this Sunny Beach, right? And hit save. So it saved it at that point. I can make lots of changes in here if I want to do that. And then I can download it as I can save it, export it, call it what you like. I can save it as an Adobe Swatch Exchange file. And that is the best way I have found if you need to create that. Most of the time, if you're working with an Affinity crew, everybody's using Affinity, you'll be able to use it. And don't forget now, of course, that Affinity is free. So even if someone uses Photoshop and you give them an afpalette file, they can download Affinity for free and use it from there. They might even switch, who knows? But those are the things that you can do in there. So that is how to create an ASE file from Affinity when it doesn't actually support it. Okay, now you can do other things here. With this, we didn't even have a palette for that, did we? So in this one, we have no document palette. We didn't create a document palette from this document, but we do have our 5 colours. So what we can do in here is from our disclosure triangle, yet again, but it's not even a triangle anymore, it's a V, isn't it? Used to be a burger. Right, from in here, you can choose to create a palette from the document. Again, you have to tell it what type of palette. We'll go for document palette. But what it will do is automatically create, it will extract from that. Now, I would say it's extracted far too many colours, but you can then delete the ones that you don't actually need. But it can do that from an Affinity file. Now, what if what you wanted was to do it from an actual image? Well, there was an option for that as well. So in here we had create from document, which means the currently open Affinity document, but you can also do that from an image. And that brings you this dialog box. Dedicated dialog box to do this. So we will select the image and we will use Bruno. Notice, bizarrely, it doesn't let you open up an Affinity file. So that's an AF file. But this one was our exported colours. And we also have Bruno in here. I think I've got Bruno in there. And peaches as well. Let's do the peach one. Let's have a difference to Bruno. So we'll open up the peach one. What that does is open up the image and it gives you a range of colours that it has found in the image. 5 of them. But you get to decide how many. So 3 is the minimum. You can take it down to 3 or you can take it up. So let's go mad and say 30. And preview. And when you preview, it shows you all the colours it's found. I've no idea where it's got that pink from. I don't see pink, but that's just me. So a whole range of them. And you can play around in here until you get the right number for you. So where that says 30, let's put 10 and do another preview. And it's obsessed with that pink, isn't it? Well, we're having it, apparently. So we'll say 10. Then where are you saving this? So you get to choose whether it's an application palette, a system palette, a document palette, or whether to just put these colours inside the currently selected palette, which would be the one called palette. Let's go for a document palette for this and create. And what that does is create this. It names it the name of the file, which was peach and a lot of numbers. And then it's got the 10 colours in there that you told it, but you can go up to, I think it's 99 or 100 if you want. Got a whole extra range. So you can pick a range of colours from another image entirely. Right, I am having a look on here. So new, done that. Oh, what we need now is some fun, isn't it? So let's go in and try something that'll be fun. It'll be fun if it works. Right, my screen is going to go black when I try this. Hopefully it will spring to life again. Always worth a try though, isn't it? Right, no idea what this thing's doing. So what I'm attempting to do at this point, and I need to do other magic stuff first, I'm using my phone. And what I want my phone to do is share to my screen. Now it will do it, but it will put it on the wrong screen. So I will need to move it, hence it going black. Right. Am I seeing things? Well, I am certainly seeing some of it. I'm not seeing the whole thing because this screen is smaller. Let's see. You are on one, but you're not showing it me correctly, are you? So let's try and do that. No, it's not going to do that. Well, we'll see the top half of it. Right, that's because I have different screens at different resolutions. So hopefully you are able to see my phone, if only half of my phone. Right, But we can see the business bit of my phone, which is Adobe Capture at the top. This is a completely free application and it hooks up with your completely free Adobe account. So I will do that. It will open up and show me some of the colours. Notice that top one, Sunny Beach, we just created that and it's synchronized to my phone. Right, but what I'm going to do here is enable the camera, and we're looking at, I had to do it, the iPhone sock had to do it. There isn't an iPhone in it. It's the remote control for my speakers. But it is an iPhone sock, and it is lovely, lovely Affinity green. So as I move around with this, you can see that, and I've got balls bouncing all over. When I move the camera, which I'm doing, the balls move. And then every now and then they stop dead. Right, what I need to do is get this to a point where I can tap OK and stop it doing that. Let's do it there. Right, it has now saved that, but I get to change things. So if that one is a little bit dark, I can use the sliders to lighten it up a bit. So let's have that one quite dark. But this grey one, I've just tapped the grey one. I don't want grey at all. So I need to bring into that some degree of green, like that. That one possibly needs to be a little bit different. Let's lighten it up and let's move the middle one and lighten that up even more. So let's say that is what we want there. You can alter the brightness at the bottom, which you can just see the word brightness, but you can't actually see it because the screen is smaller. Right, I'm going to hit save on that, and it says Colour Theme 9. Not helpful. So let's put live greens. So this was done live in the demo, live greens. And OK. Right, at that point, there is a save button at the bottom of the screen, which unfortunately you can't see. But I will hit the save button and it will save it. Would you like to access the photos? Blah, blah, blah. I want to keep just the current selection, and it saved it. So in my Adobe Colour group that we've just seen, we've got Sunny Beach and we've got live greens. So I've used Adobe's free offerings, both their account and their app, to do something that Affinity can't do, which is make a palette from an image. Now, it could be an image where you load the image in, but obviously this was a live image. So if you are somewhere like Mardi Gras and you think, oh, these colours are amazing, then just take a photo or do it live and save it from there. So that technically should synchronise. You can see Fernie down there at the bottom, who was practising. That was me. Right, we need to get back and see if it's actually synchronised. So I will need in here to turn off that. So stop the mirroring, and we are back. I don't know where Affinity's gone. Oh, Affinity's done weird things and disappeared. Let me bring it back. Okay, you are on totally the wrong screen. Right, there we go. So we need to go back to Adobe Colour. Let's make that full screen. And this was saved at that point, so let's make sure that is actually saved. Let's go back to the colour wheel. And let's go back there. Can I see what's in it? Come on, explore libraries. Here we go. So these are all my libraries, and Adobe Colour is at the top. There's Sunny Beach, so that's okay, but it hasn't synchronized yet. So what I'm going to do is force a synchronize from my phone. It would synchronize in the end, but hopefully if I magically sync the libraries, let's have a look. Oh, you are actually there. So it says it's done it, and now you'll see I've got 2 sunny beaches. Yeah, think this might need a refresh. So let's refresh at that end, and there is live greens. And there, I didn't know what these hex colours were, but I can actually copy the hex colour from there. Also from here, here's my option to download as an ASE. So if I choose to download that, and we'll go back, and we will go to, come on, libraries, I'm not stressing you that much. There's Sunny Beach, we can download that as well. Once we've got those ASEs, it's simple to share them with anybody using any application that uses or supports ASEs, which is Adobe Swatch Exchange files, which is what they're for. Okay, right. This is the fun bit. So that was fun bit number 1, which was creating a palette from a mobile application. It does also work on Android. It's not just iPhone and iPad. Now, back in here, I said, if you remember at the beginning, what happens if it's too late? Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I have a file here. So where are we? That one, which is here. So I'm opening up a file. This file was created from a data merge. That is irrelevant, but you'll know that it was a data merge because there's 365 pages in it, one for every day of the year. And it has a lovely green at the back. And it has the word Thursday. Everything is locked at the moment, and that is in a certain green. Right, let's have a look what we've got in here. Well, we created Bruno, if you remember, as a system palette. No, an application palette. So that is available, but that's no use. There are no document palettes in here. If there are no document palettes, guess what? There's no global colours. If there are no global colours, Nightmare Central, how do we change this from green? Because, you know, we've done it and it's amazing and all of the data's merged. It's wonderful. All the holidays are in it, the schedule's in it, the lot. And now the client doesn't like green. And you are spitting bullets. Okay, you don't need to think about that. You can still fix it. So, first thing to do, under here. Right. I have unlocked the background and the body background just to show you what's actually happening. Body background is white. If I take that away, you can see that the background is a shape and it's got a fill on it. So it's the background that we need to change. The other thing we need to change is this here. We toggle that on and off. You can see that that needs changing as well. Okay. Right, let's go to the background and it is now selected. If you go to Layer, Select, Same, Fill Colour, it has selected every item on every page, all 365 of them, that has that green fill. Now, I know that that green fill is absolutely accurate because it was a data merge. So the data merge only had one page in it. But obviously, once it's merged, there's 365 of them. Right, at this point, it's probably a good idea to do a couple of things. Right, add a global colour for a start. And this one would be background. And let's make it, it's going to have to be some kind of offensive pink, isn't it? Let's do this, get it down to there. We don't want it too bright because it's a background. It only needs to have a hint of it, but that will do nicely. Right, at the moment, how do I know it's made a selection? Well, it's made a selection because we have blue here. If you see there and there are blue lines. Normally, there are not blue lines. That is indicating a multi-page selection. So let's click to apply that. And we've just updated 365 pages, even though it was too late. Too late by which you knew nothing about global colours, so you hadn't used them. Right, let's see that again with this one. So this is text. It's got a certain colour on it, not the colour that I'm looking for. But I'm going to add a global colour first, and I'm going to make this a very hot pink. Oh dear, that is offensive. Right, and that's going to be my day header. Notice I'm not using the word pink, because I could change these back to green if I wanted. Right, if I click at the moment, it will update one. I need it to update all of them, and they're not selected yet. Notice, no blue line. But with the first one selected, Layer, Select, Same, Fill Colour. Right, it has selected that, and our blue lines are back, and notice they're a little bit narrower, because there's nothing outside that area. This box is the width of the white area, so that is selected. At that point, let's change our day header, and we've just updated every day. So even when it's too late, it's not actually too late if you know what you're doing. And the trick is to be able to make a selection of the multiple items that have been formatted. Now, obviously, in this case, I know that every page had exactly the same green background and exactly the same green text. I can show you how I know that by opening this file, which is the original. This is the data merge. So this has one page with a green background and a green header. But obviously I merged it with 365 days worth of data, and that was how come I had such a big file. Obviously, the alternative would be to go back into here and reformat it and re-export it. But I'm working on the principle maybe you never had the original. The original has long since gone. You've lost the data or something else. So that's a situation where it is too late and you have still saved the day. Right, there's two more things to show you. So we will save that one. We will close that. Right, right. In here, you have a range of options that they already give you. So we created Bruno, but colours, gradients, greys and hatches were already there. Now, in the gradients, we've got gradients, as you would imagine, which we can apply like that. They're not very exciting gradients, but they're gradients nevertheless. Right, there is such a thing as a GRD file, which is a gradient file. And you can get a lot of these free. So the one that I'm using, I don't think I put the link in, Mike. It's for Resource Boy, Purple Gradients, if you could just whip and find that. But what I have got is a file. So I'm going to show you that. Let's do this so you can see it. This is what happens when you unzip it. You end up with this file that is a GRD file, a gradient file. And Affinity has not a clue what that is. Not a clue. So I can't just import it. What I can do is convert it first. So this is a conversion site. So notice it says, convert an Adobe Suite GRD gradient file into the Affinity Suite afpalette file format. Right. Well, that file, that GRD file, is there. Right, so all I'm going to do is drag and drop it up to there. And that's it. It's done it. And so somewhere I should have my Finder window. And within here, there is my file. Now, what are you doing in there? Let me just move that over there. Let's say, no, hang on. I'll convert it first. That's what I'll do. So we've got gradients in there. There's our GRD file. Right, there we go. It's worked better that time. So although you can drag and drop it, it doesn't like it. So go and find the file and then download the Affinity palette from it. So it gives you a full preview, all 200 of them. So download that. It should have put that in the right place. So there we go. There is the one I've just downloaded, 1637. And all I then need to do is lose that out of the way. And in here, import it. So back to the import options. So import palette as a document palette. Which one do we want? It was in the downloads folder. It was that one, which is now an AF palette format. And I've opened them and there they are. A whole range of gradients for you to use. So you would use them in exactly the same way as colours. It opens up an entirely different world for you, because you will find hundreds of gradient files for Photoshop, which, without being able to convert them, you would not be able to use. Okay, one last thing. In fact, two, because I've got one for Mac and one for Windows. Right, I'm going to undo that. So we've got some normal colours to make a selection from. Okay. I work with colour a lot, as you can imagine, and having document palettes is really useful. Having system palettes on a Mac, really useful. But sometimes I just want a quick colour and I want to put it into an app that isn't actually a kind of design app. So I could do with just pasting the hex code. Let's just do it quickly. Sometimes I want to grab a colour from the screen and I haven't even got Affinity open. Well, what are you going to do about that? Well, there are lots of applications, both for Mac and Windows, that will do that. Raycast, you know I love Raycast, and I know that you're beginning to love Raycast. Raycast has an option for a colour picker. So if I open Raycast, you can see I type colour and there's a lot of options in there. What I'm going to do is actually show you the colour picker. This is an extension. It's only available for the Mac at the moment. I am fingers crossed there will be an updated version available for Raycast for Windows. Possibly it might be as long as when it's actually released. It's currently in beta. But once you have this application, this extension installed, you can now have colour names, use a colour wheel, convert colours, extract them from an image, generate colours. You can do all kinds of things that you could not do before. You'll notice that I have 2 of these with a shortcut key. I know the shortcut key does not look pleasant. It's actually really easy. It's the 3 keys on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side, to be honest, of an average Mac keyboard, plus the brackets. One enables me to pick a colour, the other enables me to organise colours. It's as simple as that. That's just how I use it. So because I've allocated a shortcut key, don't even need to open Raycast to do it. I just use the shortcut key. That is what it looks like. You will notice that I have hex codes here, and I have names as well. That's because if I want to limit my previous colour picks to Affinity, I can just start typing in and it will filter them. So there are my Affinity colours: Vector, Green, Pixel, Layout and Brown. Very similar, isn't it, to what you've got inside Affinity, but it's independent of Affinity. That's what it looks like when I've selected a colour. And all I need to do is move down. So I'm on the green one, and notice at the bottom it's saying copy to clipboard. And if I do that, it's copied the hex code to the clipboard. I do that, you can actually see the colour inside my clipboard, which is also in Raycast. Right, that was using colours I'd already picked. But what about colours that I haven't already picked? Well, I use a different shortcut key. You see, I get a magnifying glass. This is not the Affinity magnifying glass. This is Raycast, totally independent of it. So let's go grab that orange. It says it's copied it to the clipboard. Indeed it has. It gives me a preview. I can paste that wherever I like now. But even better than that, it's put it in my history of selected colours with its hex code. And I can copy and paste from there and use it anywhere. That is the method I would recommend, because Raycast is totally free and the extension is free. There are paid options, but they're getting increasingly expensive, and some with subscriptions. So that is the most cost-effective way to do that on a Mac. If you are on Windows, you will need the Windows PowerToys Colour Picker utility, which I think I can at least show you. Let's have a look. Yep, there we go. So I've got the URL. I will paste that and we'll go and have a look at it. And there it is. So this is also free. It gives you virtually the same features. Obviously, the interface is different, but it liberates your colour picker from Affinity and enables you to use the colours that you need to use anywhere you like. So the PowerToys have been around since 1995. They just keep adding to them. And there's some that are really, really useful. And I think you'll find that that is actually one of them already. That is incredibly useful. Right, let me get up to there. And we are done. We are done. So we covered a lot. The colour panel, the Swatches panel. So that took us quite a while. But then we moved on to the colour picker tools, the global picker, the eyedropper tool. We looked at all the different kinds of palettes, global colours, importing colours, exporting colours, what to do because you didn't know any better and now you think it's too late. But it's never too late. There's always a way that you can do that. And the fun features were how to select outside of that and all of the other options we looked at. And we will be having the Q&A. So quick recap. I mentioned that Affinity uses different colour models, representing colours in different ways, and that RGB and CMYK are the most popular. The actual colour picker tools themselves, the first one we looked at was the colour picker, and that can pick from anywhere on the screen. It supports multiple screens, as you saw, because I've got 3 and I picked off one of the others. The difference, if you've used Affinity before, it didn't used to automatically be applied, but now it is. So if you have something selected and you use the colour picker, it will automatically apply it. Used to be 2-3 steps. And that is pervasive across the interface, so you can pick from anywhere. Now, the dedicated colour picker tool, you are limited to the canvas area, the design area, only when it comes to making your selections. It's a single-step process. So with something selected, you use that and it will automatically apply. You've got presets to choose from, which enable you to choose an average colour from a larger area, which is what it says at the bottom. You can select an average one. The palette types we looked at were document palettes, where the palette lives inside a single file. Application palettes, which mean that the palettes are only available inside Affinity. And if you are on a Mac, my favourite, system palettes, which exist system-wide. They are compatible swatch files between Photoshop and Affinity. What you will find there's 2 different formats. The ASE format, the Adobe Swatch Exchange format, is the better one to use. You can convert an ACO, it's just a little bit more work. But when it comes to taking them into Affinity, you can use the ASE with a little bit more work, the ACO, and the Apple Colour lists as well. Right, everything that I do, particularly relating to Affinity, is available on youtube.com/Elaine Giles. We have a dedicated playlist. That is the QR code for said dedicated playlist, which is called Affinity with Elaine. All that is on that playlist is the information for version 3. So from the first one we did back first weekend in November, which was everything you need to know, through to creating a first layout, we took a side step with data merge. Then headed back with create a calendar. We did planner pages. We then did 2 sessions on photo books, which are both on there. Our trifold brochure, which got a mention today because of the church trifold brochure. Last week was scrapbooking, and when this session is over, you will find this one in the same playlist. If you have enjoyed that, please give the video a like. It makes a massive difference, as does subscribing. YouTube likes subscribers, but not quite as much as I do. And as has been pointed out, I think Annie has pointed this out, we're quite close to 50,000. That would be rather nice. So tell your friends. I know if you're in the chat with me live, you're subscribed. But didn't we check the other day, Micah? Wasn't it something like 58, or was it more than that? Something like 70% of people who watch the videos not subscribed? Chance to subscribe them, isn't there? Now, afterwards, comments are really important. YouTube currency are comments. You can't leave a comment until we've finished. So the trick is hang around for a couple of minutes at the end and then put a comment. Today's emoji is the water drop emoji. You might be thinking the rainbow, but no, it's the water drop because it matches the poster. So if you've made it this far and you're leaving a comment, put the icon, and then I know you were with us right to the bitter end. Right, what have we got next time? You might have seen a bit of a tease for this in my interface as I was opening files, but you probably didn't take much notice. Next week, now Mike is an amazing cook and makes wonderful sausage rolls. I have far too many of them for my own good, really, don't I, Mike? But never mind. That's what I'm doing next week. I'm doing a recipe layout, get it the right way around, woman, for sausage rolls. See, now I've seen the picture of the sausage rolls, I've lost it. Yeah, they are that nice. In fact, they're nicer than that. So that's next week. That is the 18th at 3 p.m. on Sunday. We did talk about whether you preferred Saturday or Sunday. Saturday being in the evening. It was 50-50. Oh no, I was hoping for a real 90% of you wanted a certain time. So keep voting. Keep letting me know, and maybe you'll be the one that swings it. Let me know. So thank you for being with me. Those are my socials. I have got Facebook on there, but I'm a bit disgusted with Facebook at the moment, so don't try and contact me on Facebook. I'm unlikely to see it. Your best bet's actually my blog, and send a comment form thing in. because that will land in my email and I'll see it. But there's my socials anyway. I do post on Blue Sky. I love Blue Sky. It's like Twitter, but without the toxicity. Because I'm a pretty peeved with Twitter at the moment as well. Yeah, so social, not great at the moment, but Blue Sky is where it's at. Okay, that is where you need to go for my VIP list, and you will get first notification of everything that I do. So, I've got another vote for Saturday evening now. Right, okay. Are we on to Q&A now? Do we have questions?
We have lots of questions.
Oh, excellent. Right, where we go.
Right,
how's the match?
Am I live? Sorry?
Yes, you're live. How's the match?
Don't ask.
Oh, dear. I did say Brighton, didn't I? FA Cup, not looking good.
No.
So you're not booking for Wembley in May then?
No.
Oh, he's grumpy. Right, come on, do the questions. It'll make you less grumpy.
I'm just copying this out. Right, first question from SFN. How did you get all the colour combos to show on the colour panel? I've never seen that before. Sorry if I missed you explaining that.
If you're talking about the things at the bottom, let's get back into Affinity. That will be in the colours here. These appear automatically. Now, can you turn them off? Let's have a look. I've got advanced turned on, but that is the default. So that is what that panel used to look like, but the default now is advanced, and it has these options turned on at the bottom. The key to making the things at the bottom work well is if you've got something selected, as you make your selection here, you can see these changing. If you want to work with, say, these, then you need to lock it. But the advanced mode is turned on, but that is the default. Now, if you are old school, if you've used version 1 and version 2 and you're never using those, then you could turn that off and that would save a little bit of screen real estate if that's what you want. I'm leaving them on because my screen needs to look as much as possible like everybody else's screen, or I get complaints that it doesn't look the same. So I'll leave it turned on, but that's where it is.
Okay, next one from Ricardo. Is there a way to see the stroke panel when you're in the Pixel Studio?
Right, Pixels. You should just be able to open it. So let's go for the stroke, vector stroke, window, vector stroke, and there you go. So all I did at that's Raycast. You know, we all love Raycast. You will find that under window, probably under Pixel. No, not under Pixel. Oh, no, hang on. Are you under? No, you're not. Oh, where are you? There you go, vector stroke. Right, so it's under vector. You turn it on in there. If you want to see that with the other one, so you're up here with colour swatches and stroke, you just add it into there. And now it's there. So it's widened it a bit. Let's narrow it. So now I've got that in the pixel layout as well as the vector layout. If I switch to vector, there is the stroke in there. To be honest, if you're going to turn on colour swatches and stroke, you might as well put appearance on as well, and then you're covered with everything. But that is how you do it.
Okay, Joho says, colour picker, is it independent from the night mode from the screen, or reddish at night to please the eyes?
I would guess it was independent of that, but I don't use the night mode thing. So give it a try and let me know. I would guess it was independent, because what's actually on your screen is one thing, and how they're showing it you is like an overlay on it. I would suspect it's independent, but I don't know, because I don't use that.
All right. Tish says, is there a workaround for system colours on Windows?
Not that I'm aware of, but to be honest, it's quite... I mean, it's a shame it's missing because it is a very, very useful feature. I would miss it if I had to go back and use Windows. But the only way that they can implement that is if Microsoft implement it. So I would say application palettes won't help you. Document palettes will at least have the correct colours, but nothing is the same as system palettes. So there isn't a complete workaround to it, unfortunately. But it doesn't make you... I wouldn't want Windows users to think like, oh, you know, throw your arms in there, I can't use it because it's not got system palettes. It's just convenient. It is very convenient. It makes it that I can use the same palettes across applications. What you would have to do on Windows, you wouldn't really have any other choice, I wouldn't think, other than make sure that you've got the palette saved in a useful format, and make sure that you add them into the applications that you're working with. The other option would be to use the Raycast or a colour picker and just use the colour picker instead. Now, that's not as good, but it is an option. But no, there isn't, unfortunately. I couldn't say to you, get this application and it'll work. It won't. But it's a Microsoft thing.
Okay, Ricardo says, can you lock a global colour so you don't accidentally change it later?
Let's have a look. I don't think you can. Let's go to our palette here. We have a lock. We don't have a lock, but it would actually be quite difficult to do that. You would have to deliberately do that. You would have to right click. You would have to edit the fill. You would have to move these sliders to be able to do it. If you applied a global colour, so if we did that, and you then went in here and started changing it, so another thing you've got is to just change colours like that. That doesn't change the global colour. The only way you can change the global colour is to right click and then edit the fill. So I think it takes too many clicks to be accidental. Might be a nice option, but no. Actually, that's not a global colour, is it? Hang on a minute. Just a minute. Let's make that global. Let's apply it in there. Let's make a change to that. I don't think it will change it. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I think you'd have to really try to change a global colour to change it. Right.
Okay.
What else we got?
Joho, when I import a palette, can I set the whole palette as global, or do I have to do it for every colour one by one?
Right, let's have a look, because we brought this one in, didn't we? At the point of import, it doesn't give you an option. But if I selected, can I select multiple things in here? No, I can't. Oh dear. I'm trying every shortcut key known to man here. No, it's not letting me do it. Right, let me see if we've got an option up here. Not from there, we wouldn't. And in here, it has to be that you've got it selected. So, no, that's not good, is it? I'd have to have a think about that. At the moment, it looks like it's one by one. But let me have a think about it. You never know. Right, what else we got?
Okay, next question from Jammy. Do you not use the Pastel app for palette sharing across Apple devices?
I probably would, but I am not showing an app that's Mac only. Not on top of all the other things that are Mac only. Windows users, are rightly upset about that. I think, like the fact that there's no system palettes is enough without showing apps. When I've demonstrated this before, I've done 3 sessions before, and I've also done a dedicated session to the Mac Colour Picker, which I think I put a link into that. Did I put a link, Mike?
Which
video?
one?
You'll find it on the channel. It's the Mac OS Colour Picker, and that's dedicated to all the things that can do. And I have done like a longer session just on colour on the Mac. Now, if I'm doing a session and it's on the Mac, then I will show Mac only tools. But I'm trying at the moment to make sure that the Windows users are accommodated. So I was really peeved, I'll be honest, that the Raycast Colour Picker wasn't already available to Windows users, but it wasn't, not yet. However, having said that, the beta version, Raycast is still in beta for Windows. It's not even been released yet. They have added the run command to Raycast, which is something that we don't have on the Mac. So if you've used the run command, you use it to get to Regedit and things, don't you? If you use the run command, the Raycast version is just beautiful. It gives you a pick list rather than you having to know what to type and things. So there are things in the Raycast for Windows version that are not in the Mac one, and there are things that are in the Mac one that aren't in the Windows one. And that is based on what the system can handle. But the Mac version has been around for 5-6 years. So we have more extensions, but the extensions are starting to grow for the Windows side. So one of the things I could see would be worthwhile somebody doing is replicating the system palette functionality, but doing it in Raycast for Windows. That would be quite handy. I will be definitely keeping my eye out for that one. What else we got?
Okay, before I go on to the next question, a couple of people have asked about Discord. So I'll put the link in the chat. You'll notice that it's macbytes.co.uk. That is because that was where it came from. But we do welcome Windows users as well, don't we?
just because things are called Mac bites, or, don't concentrate on the Mac, concentrate on the bites.
That's historical.
It's historical, yeah. Mac Bites is our podcast, which has been around for 18 years. 18 years we've had a podcast. Oh, my. Yeah, we also did 500 episodes, didn't we, during lockdown? So it is a podcast about Mac stuff, but it's generally tech, to be honest. You don't have to listen to Mac Bites to join the community. The community is where we hang out. But most people who follow us on the community also follow us in these sessions. So that's why it's probably being talked about, I would guess.
Okay. Oh, there's a question for me.
Oh.
How have I found the Raycast beta? It seems to work okay for me. Yeah, no problems.
You're not really trying the extensions and stuff at the moment yet, though, are you?
No.
I think it's just nice that if you do have to switch, if you're forced to switch to Windows, the same shortcut key will bring up Raycast and you can now run the apps. Because when I'm on Windows, I'm like, how do I run that app again?
Yeah, so install it. I've had no problems with it. Mark says, what's the option with the cord?
It's just a different way of adding. In fact, if I open up that, we've got chords in here, haven't we? Oh, we don't. It's related colours, basically. So it's just a term for related colours. So you can add them if you want. If you're trying to build up a palette and you want colours that are kind of complementary or work together, like you can see in the interface that I'm showing on there now, that is what you would do. So it's just that different way of looking at colours that are fractionally different.
Okay, this is a long one. Hi, Elaine and Mike. Thank you for a really interesting colour lesson. This is from TLC Online channel, by the way.
Okay.
Thanks for a really interesting colour lesson. Not on today's subject. Very sorry, but how do you get the master pages, page numbers, to show up on the pages where you have an image going to the bleed edge? Is there some kind of hierarchy? I'm coming from InDesign to Affinity.
Yes, there is. I'm contemplating. Yeah. I can demonstrate that. Okay, so let's go into the layout. Let's make a new thing. Let's take an aside. Right, so you've got a page. It's got, yeah, we could do with making that with a bleed, couldn't we? Right, let's put a bleed on it and margins on it. Right, 10 for margins, 3 for bleed, and put a picky on it. Right, so let's go to stock. What should we have? Oh, Scotland, I think. I've been working on my Scotland file. Right. Oh, that's quite nice, isn't it? Right, let's put a placeholder and pop the image in there. Let's use that train one. Like that. Okay. Now, at that point, we've got no page numbers on there. So, in our pages, we would need a master page. So, add a master page. Come on. Right. And we'll call it page numbers so we know what it is. Right. You will find this in a video. So Mike can find this video. There is a page numbers video. So it could be in there, but I think it's also in the stamp one, the watermark video. So if you could find the links for those two, that'd be great. Right. So in here, I'm going to put a placeholder in here for my page number. So let's put in there page. And then we need to insert a field, which is page number. Right, and then that needs formatting in some kind of way. Now, there is a caveat on this. Can I fix it? Yeah, I probably can. But just for simplicity, I'm going to keep this fairly simple. I'm not making textiles or generally playing around with it. So let's move that. So it's a little bit lower. Put it to the bottom. And I'm not going to make it any smaller because we want to see it. But what will happen, I will apply that page to page 1. And we will go in there and we will not be able to see the page number. Page number is there. So if we toggle the image off, there's the page number. What we need to do is make a change to it. Right, you are able in here to edit linked. So if I go into here and I put the page numbers at the top, we can see it. And then finish. So this still is a master page, but you've edited it by putting it at the top. Now, if you've got multiple pages, you can do all of that at the same time. You'll get a lot more information about that in these two videos, particularly the stamp one. What that does is show you that in a magazine with a layout like you've got there, I've got proof copy across the middle, I think, or sample, something like that. And obviously, because it's on a master page, it's at the back. And in that video, I show you how I get that on every page over the top of all of the content. But that's the principle of it, as you've seen there. So you can either edit detached or you can edit linked, and what you're doing is moving it in the stacking order so you can actually see it. Now, obviously, it would make much more sense if it was white text, but we'll talk about something related to that next week. So hopefully that answers that question for you.
Okay, SFN says in relation to that, when you add a bleed, as you've just done, it simply adds to the existing page size. So if you had an A4 page with no bleed, then add the bleed, it'll be A4 size plus bleed. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Right.
What you've got here, let's toggle that image off so we can see it. Right. What you've got there is this is your page cut here. That'll be the edge of your page. The blue bit there is the margin, and this lavender colour on the outside is the bleed. So sometimes when you're reading a spec for printing, it will give you a size for the page, and it might say A4, which is 210 by 297 millimeters. And maybe it's talking about a spread, so it doubles it. But then it will say, so the completed size is, and the completed size will be 6 millimeters more, both vertically and horizontally, to account for the 3 millimeter bleed. But the page itself stays exactly the same.
Okay, I don't think you'll be able to answer this. I certainly can't, but maybe you can. Is from Ignacio. Has anyone used a tool to calibrate monitor colours? He's on Windows 11 and noticed its laptop and monitor colours are a bit different. When I print, the colours don't match on the screen.
That is quite strange. I'm not a great believer in stuff like that. There was a device called a spider, wasn't there? You used to clip it to the front of the monitor and it did magic. But to be honest, you could get it to match on monitors, but then the printer comes into it and all bets are off. So I think we've only ever had a problem once with colour, didn't we? Remember that one that came out? Was it bluey and it should have been browny or the other way around? That was probably relating to the black, but I reckon that was something they did because I sent them the same file, basically. I made no changes to it on the front cover for 4 years running and the others were fine. So no, I can't help you with that because I don't bother. I just think that is time wasted as far as I'm concerned because it should. The difference between what you're seeing and what's being printed out, I would suggest, is more to do with the printer than what you're seeing on the screen. So you have to get the whole process would need to be calibrated. Maybe try Pantone and research that a bit more because they are supposed to be, what you see is what you get with Pantone. Having said that, you can use it in Photoshop now, but I think it's a subscription for colours. It's crazy, isn't it? But I'm sure it is. So no, I'm afraid I can't help with that. I don't do it, and I know you definitely don't do it.
No.
Near enough is near enough for us, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, from Jane. On a photo box, how can a gradient be applied to fade out the image? Sorry, it's off topic.
If you want to fade an image out, let me go in here. Let's bring that image back on. We're not concerned anymore with the page numbers, just the nice train track. Right, you have an option in here. So I've got the picture frame selected. I'm in the layout view. I think it's available in the vector view. Let's have a look. It's in there somewhere. Is this tool that you're looking for, which is the transparency tool. Now what that will do is you will draw down, and technically speaking, it will add transparency to it, which it isn't doing. Hang on. Does it need to be on there rather than where I've put it? Let's have a look. There we go. So it needs to be on the picture itself, not the frame. Now, what you can do with it once it's on there, it works like a gradient, but the far end of it is transparent. So you can bring this down like that. You can move the midpoint up and down like that. You can add extra points on just by clicking. and then move that as well. You can also do it where you're doing it left to right or on a diagonal. It really doesn't matter. Now, obviously, if what you're trying to do is get that to match something, then it's probably a good idea to put the thing you're trying to match it to on the back, behind it. So let's leave that as the transparency, and let's draw something that covers that. Go all the way into the blade. And what I'm actually looking for with that is a colour to have it. So let's say that colour. So let's put that behind it, down there. And you can see that the image is now transparent at this side, so it's bleeding into it. The other option, depending on the effect that you're looking for, is you'd need transparency on something, but you might not need the transparency on the image. So if we don't want to delete the whole image, just want to take the transparency away. So we do that. It's taken that away. No, you're deleting the image on me, aren't you? And I know it's on there as well, and I don't want that. Let me do another one. Right, so let's add that. Let's go get a stock image. That one was quite nice, wasn't it? Let's pop that on there. Not putting it in a frame. Let's just scoot it down so we can see the side of the image like that. Right, if I wanted that, if I want to put some text next to it maybe, and I want it to fade into it, then the other option is to put the thing, and let's make sure that that sort of matches better than it does right now. So it's a little bit better. I might want to put a gradient on that so it matches the image more, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to put some text in there, but I want that to kind of blend into that. So instead of putting the gradient on the image itself, I mean, it wouldn't really matter, you could put the image on the top, but the other way of doing it is to go into here and do that, and then move this. Might even need to move that down there like that. And now we've got that looking like it's going into there, like that. So there's two ways to do it. Which way you would do it just depends on what you're trying to achieve. Okay?
Okay, Ms. Chappie has said, could you do a session on Raycast?
That's not the first request we've had for that.
No.
Are you Mac or Windows? Let me know.
It says Windows.
Windows, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Put it on the list, Mike. I'm
on Windows and had to uninstall it.
Oh dear.
Right. Last question, unless any more come in. From Tish, will the colour picker tool apply a global colour? I'm thinking not, but I'm looking for an easy way to change all my labels.
No, because what it's picking up is a hex code and it's using that. But when you say change all your labels, are they all different colours? If they all have like a background colour, which is the same, then you could use the select same method to do it. If they're not all the same, then you're looking at a more manual way of doing it. But at least you now know. Like I had to recreate the church file. I mean, I would have had to have done something with it anyway. We lost a church. We used to have 3 churches. Now we've got 2. 3 schools, 2 churches. So the content needed editing. But once I went in and I looked at the content that needed editing, I looked at the method that I'd used to create certain things. And I'd used, in essence, what I would call Photoshop workflows, which involved a lot of clipping masks. And I just didn't need them. So I took the opportunity to improve the file as well to make it easier to use in the future. So think of it as an opportunity rather than a job.
She said it's the font colours.
If you want to change if it's one colour and it's a font, that's fine. You saw me change the day heading. But again, if the fonts are all different colours, then no. But you could do it with a search and replace, and that way you make sure you've got everything that was one particular colour. At least it would match. But there isn't an automatic way to make the whole thing work. No, it would be nice, but no. You've got 90 labels. Yes, that's exactly it. I love that. Right, I've got 90 labels and I need to make them the same because I didn't know what I know now. Exactly what to do when you think it's too late. But if all those 90 are different colours, then that's 90 jobs. If they're all the same colour, then it's one job. So do have a look at the options that you've got with select same. I showed select same fill, but you can select if let's say they are, let's have a look at it. Let me show you what we've got. Right, so I've selected something here and I go into my select. Right, so select down to same. You've got fill colour, you've got stroke colour, you've got fill and stroke, a stroke weight, transparency. So if any of these are the same, there may be a way for you to do it, including the name and the tag colour, which is why it's worthwhile using tag colours and things. I'm not quite sure what I could call a session on organisation, but it is basically organisation. So when there's a couple of features in here. There's snapshots and there's states. And states can be automated. They rely on either the name or the tag colour. So when I'm working, I do tend to use tag colours in case I want to use a state in the future. So of all the things that you can select that are the same, if it's faster for you, so let's say you've got 90 labels. Maybe they're in batches of 10 or something like that. If you went through and had you applied a tag colour, which is a lot easier because in here, there's that file with all the squares in. Right, see all the layers we've got in here? These are all different colours. If I wanted them all to be the same colour, I could make a selection and I could go in here and you've got options at the bottom. So say these are the ones I want to change. Now they've all got this colour applied to them. I can treat them the same even though they've got a different fill. So there's lots of different options when it comes to making a selection using the same something. You can now see I've got multiple ones selected. So it can't say fill colour or stroke colour because they've all got different fills and strokes. But you could say stroke weight if they had a stroke, and you could say other things. So it's just a matter of trying to have a look in there and see if there's any commonality. Maybe you could select the lot if they all had the same stroke on them or something like that.
Okay.
Okay.
There's one more from SFN. Is there a way to set a tolerance for select same? I couldn't see anything.
No, I don't think there is an option for that. It's basically based on the size. So, no, for select same. No, with select same, it's going to be absolute.
I was trying to select same to get rid of a fake transparent background. You know, when AI adds the checkerboard, but it was having none of it.
Depends what type of object that is as to how it would work. But no, I'm not aware that there is any tolerance that you could add to it.
That's it.
Okay, we are all done. Has things improved?
No. You know that slide? Don't mention the match.
It's that bad, is it?
It's that bad.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's half time now, isn't it?
Yes.
Right, why? If you are doing a likely lads, which you'll probably only understand that if you're from the UK, but wasn't that in the World Cup? Was it that old? Or was it the early 70s?
Yeah, I think it was.
Well, it's a programme called The Likely Lads, and this was when football wasn't live on the TV. And the two guys were going to watch the match later, which meant that they had to spend the entire day avoiding the score. And somebody let them down, didn't they? And revealed the score. So, if you don't want to know the half-time score for Manchester United
look
versus
away
Brighton,
now.
Yeah, look away now, and Michael share it. Go on.
Losing 1-0.
Oh, it's only one, Mike. It's not exactly yesterday's score, is it? 10-1.
True.
It's not that bad. There's time yet, Mike.
Yeah.
It could end up worse, but it could also end up better. There you go. There's a good note to finish from. Who's playing it? It's Manchester United and Brighton. It's away, isn't it?
No, it's Old Trafford.
Oh, it's Old Trafford. That's right. I said you would want to travel to Brighton at this time on a Sunday. Right, so it's Manchester United and Brighton in the FA Cup third round. So the FA Cup is probably the premier trophy, knockout trophy in the UK. But United have a history with Brighton. They've knocked them out before, haven't they? But they did win in '83, which was the halcyon days of football as far as I was concerned. So it's not going well at the moment, and Mike's grumpy. There you go.
Mark says he's in Belgium. They do have football in Belgium.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do. Yeah. But not everybody's into football, and obviously you've now seen it and heard it, how grumpy he gets, and it's only 1-0. Now, yesterday, Exeter City, who admittedly are in the lower league, aren't they?
Yeah.
Got right royally stuffed by Manchester City 10-1. So all I'll say is, Mike, it could be much, much, much worse.
True.
Considering that you lost a manager this week as well.
True.
On top of everything else. But I still think there's a chance they'll claw it back. We'll see next week. We'll let you know how the match finished. Oh, don't worry about being out of the loop, Tish. There's many, many people who are not interested in the football in the slightest. Think of it as saving your own sanity. Because I know when I'm weaning myself off United in the same way I am Facebook. But Mike's still grumpy, and who wants to make themselves grumpy? So leave the sport alone, it only makes you grumpy. Okay, we will head off.
Before we do,
go on.
Once we've finished the stream, don't forget to stick around and put a comment.
Put a comment. It's the water droplet this time. Put a comment, that would be most appreciated. But for the moment, I'm going to say goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
We will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.